prepared for that.
No, it's all good.
Like, is everybody like, like we're gonna have to be proud with get back to mouth horns this week.
Love me some mouth horns.
Okay. All right.
Oh, we're recording. Here we are. Okay.
No, you're fine. All right. We're gonna go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Films in Black and White, everybody. How you feeling? We are happy everybody is with us this week. You may notice a significant lack of vibe and music and air horns because you're here. Welcome to the mouth horns episode because Marcus is a student and needs to do well on his finals so he can graduate. So he is diligently working on those finals.
Yes.
I know if he were right now, he would say that they were ass and he is not happy about them. But that's where we're at. So you get the Doug and Brian show this week.
Doug and Brian show.
So I'm going to invite Brian Roush into this. Brian, how you feeling?
Oh, shucks. You know what? I'm feeling good. I'm happy to be here. Obviously, we miss Marcus, but I'm really excited to talk about a lot of stuff.
Yep.
Like Marvel just came out swinging this week and just said, we are the news cycle this week. That's just it. That's the way it's going to be. And we all said, okay, sounds good.
Exactly right. Like we weren't expecting it, but we're glad we got it, basically.
Yep, pretty much.
Well, we have a news episode to get to, and we are excited to break all this down with you. But Brian and I do have to play a friendly game of Catch That Quotable prior to us getting into our news this week.
We do. And before we do, Doug, how are you?
I'm doing quite well, Brian.
Okay, good.
As listeners may know, I am leaving my current position at USD and getting ready for a new adventure. But it is weird to close this adventure out. Every other place that I've left, or every time I've made a job transition, I've left town, I've left the university, and so I just kind of like walked away. So this one, I feel like I have to be a little bit more like delicate. Like I can't just like kick the door open and be like, "See you, suckers, I'm out." Like I have to be like, "Does everybody have everything? Is there anything else?" Like I have to treat it almost like I'm a waiter leaving your table at Applebee's. Like, do you have enough water?
Well,
you got your food? Okay, well, I'm gonna leave, and if you need anything, I'll be in town. Let me know. So
they'll come to your door if they need anything. I mean, they know you're there.
My boss lives like 4 doors down the street from me. So she keeps saying like, "I know where you live." I'm like, yep, you do.
Yeah.
You do know where I live. So, it's weird, but it'll be an interesting adventure for sure.
Well, it sounds like good energy. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely good energy. Well, excellent. Brian, you, sir, because it is the two of us, I want to see you ride that wave into May. So, Brian, why don't you kick us off with Catch That Quotable?
All right, I will. I'm gonna kick us off. I'll start the quote here, and we'll play. Let's go. So the quote is, "Marriage is an important part of getting ahead. Lets people know you're a married guy, seem more stable. People see the ring. They think at least somebody can stand you." So I'll read that again. I stammered a little bit, so I'll say it one more time. "Marriage is an important part of getting ahead. Married guy seems more stable. People see the ring. They think at least somebody can stand him."
Okay, so right off the jump, this feels like a comedy. This feels like a dad giving his son some advice or a friend giving some friend of his advice. I'm trying to think about like movies that have marriage, and there are two that come to mind.
All right.
So Brian, before I'm going to try and narrow it down.
Okay.
So Brian, I'm going to slam that hint button. What do you have for a hint?
The hint is going to be Nicholson.
Nicholson?
Yep. I'm gonna just throw that breadcrumb right out at you.
Okay. Brian, is this as good as it gets?
It is not, but I totally understand why you went there. And I should have led you a different way.
No, you're fine.
This is The Departed.
Oh my God, really?
Alec Baldwin is talking to Matt Damon, and Matt Damon is saying, "Yeah, I'm gonna get married," and Alec Baldwin is just like, good, because then everybody knows you're an okay guy. The Departed.
Wow,
one of my favorite movies.
That is such a good movie, and I feel so duped by your hint. Like I feel betrayed by your hint.
Well, I was like, well, if I give him like the actor who's not in this particular scene, like
or if
maybe
you
he'll
gave
get
me the
there.
city, or if you
I
gave
mean,
me,
I thought about the city. I really did, but I was like, man, because then I don't know. I would go to the town if I were you. Like I would think of the Ben Affleck one.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right. Well, good work, Brian. I'm impressed. That was a good deep dive. That was
shucks.
I haven't seen that in a while, but that is
Honestly,
it's
a good rewatch. It holds up, and Mark Wahlberg. It's like the only role I've really enjoyed Mark Wahlberg in because I feel like he's just being himself. Like he's just being a jerk to everybody, and I'm like, I think that's you.
Yeah. Yeah,
so...
there are very few parts of that movie that I don't like. And I also, the thing I really appreciate about that movie is the first time I saw it when it was like in theaters, I remember generally trying to be like, they had me because there's a little bit of like a mystery or sort of like a who's it like, oh, like who's it gonna be type thing. And they had me all the way up into the end. So
same.
Scorsese did it again.
Oh yeah, for real.
All right. Well,
Doug, I'm ready.
Great dive. You ready? Okay.
I'm pumped.
All right, here we go. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Listen, I've been fatally poisoned. There's probably a psychopath heading over there to torture and kill you as we speak, but don't bother getting out of bed. I'll be there in a flash. Maybe you could fry me up a waffle or something, okay? Long quote. We'll go again.
What?
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Listen, I've been fatally poisoned. There's probably a psychopath heading over there to torture and kill you as we speak, but don't bother getting out of bed. I'll be there in a flash. Maybe you could fry me up a waffle or something, okay?
Oh boy. I don't know why, but Mel Brooks, like this feels like Mel Brooks humor. I doubt it is a Mel Brooks film. Like Clue comes to mind with like just how cheeky it is, but it's not Clue. I don't think it's Murder by Death, which is a riff on like all of the mystery novels and movies.
I love that. I love his riffs.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm just give me that hint. I don't think I'm gonna do this.
Okay, Brian. The hint is cocaine.
Oh.
Yep. Yep. There you go. That's what you get.
I don't know. Is this Traffic?
Brian, this is not Traffic.
What is it?
This is the 2006 action movie Crank, starring Jason Statham.
Oh my gosh. That all fits now.
Yeah.
I have seen that movie once. I did not pay attention to the end.
Nope.
And wow.
All you need to know is they made a second one. So that's
years.
Like all you need to know. They made Crank 2. So that's all you need to know. For those of you not familiar with Crank, Crank is the story of Jason Statham, whose
really just Jason Statham
is Chev Chelios. Chev Chelios gets, I don't know how, but he gets poisoned, and his heart rate cannot drop below a certain number, or he literally explodes. So he spends the whole movie like taking amphetamine and like snorting coke and getting into fights and jumping off of buildings. It's literally just excuses to put him in ridiculous action sequences. And to be honest with you, it's entertaining. It's entertaining as hell.
It is.
It is bizarre.
There is a romance scene as well that is very uncomfortable. That is filmed in such a way.
That was the most PC quote out of all of the listing on IMDb that I could feel empowered to say without getting in trouble. So that was probably the best quote I could have come up with, because he goes there.
I mean, it's just like it's like, what if we made a really gruesome R-rated Speed, but it's not a bus, it's a person, and who's the guy in the transporter? All right, that guy. And then they just went for it. And honestly, they made what they wanted to make. Like they took
a risk. Yeah, I'm here for it. I'm here for it 100%. Well, we both got the goose egg. I'm
2
sure.
Strikeouts.
Yep, that's okay. I'm sure if Marcus were here, he would have some quote that we also would have gotten. So let's just assume.
I mean, unless it's someone related to apparently, but I agree. I agree.
Yep, that's very accurate. Well, Brian, this is a news episode, and so we have some news to get into. And why don't you start us off with your first piece of news?
So my first piece of news is the main headline here is that Michelle Rodriguez fought for the big changes to Letty's character in the first Fast and Furious movie. If you're not familiar with this franchise or the first movie, because that's where we're getting to, in the first movie, Michelle Rodriguez plays Letty, who is this very tough, like intelligent, very capable woman who is like heist leader essentially of the Fast and Furious gang. And there is a new oral history that was published by Entertainment Weekly. And in there, they basically talk about how Michelle Rodriguez looked at the script. She said, "No, I'm not doing this. We need to change this character." And reportedly, her and Vin Diesel worked with co-writer David Ayer, which I did not know he was a co-writer.
I also did not know he was a co-writer for that.
Right?
Oh
just learning all kinds of trivia.
Yep.
And they rewrote the character in the script, and we got the character that we get today. Now, say what you will about the Fast and Furious movies here.
I mean, I haven't seen past the third one, so I mean, I can participate in this discussion because I have seen one, but anything after Tokyo Drift, and I lose sight of everything.
Well, full disclosure to our listeners, I have seen all of them, and that is not something I'm shameful of. I'm very proud of this fact.
I would be too. That's
Fast
8 movies at this point in time.
I mean, it should not have lived this long. It's just wild that it has this much legs. But essentially, as a longtime fan of the franchise, I can't imagine this character being any different or timid or not just just going for it and doing the smash and grab and trying to be intelligent about heists. That's very hard for me to picture. So I think it's great that Michelle Rodriguez advocated for this. And she identifies as Latina in Hollywood, which is a mainly white person driven institution. So I think this is pretty remarkable. And I think this is really cool. And that was the piece of news that I wanted to share.
For sure. Brian, did they give any indication on how they rewrote it? Because I mean, you're right. She's a very strong voice. She's a very strong female character. Did they give any indication of how they wrote it, or was it written for somebody else maybe? Because I don't understand how you cast Michelle Rodriguez and then be like, oh no, you're just kind of there and you're a little bit more quiet. Seems like such a waste of a talent. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so there's two things here. I'm going to do the serious one first, and then I'm going to clown around on the second. So the first is that Michelle Rodriguez apparently left the franchise. So for those that are longtime fans, she is not in a good number of movies, one of them being Tokyo Drift, which was kind of a spinoff, sort of, not really. And then she was gone for a good amount of movies and only came back recently because she did not like the way they were pushing Letty's character, and they were trying to push her. If you look at the movies, it just kind of feels domesticated and just trying to take care of Vin Diesel's character rather than planning heists, and it's what we talk a lot about, the woman is, there's more to a woman in a movie than just being a love interest. They can be,
believe it or not,
right. And that was what she had main problems with. So she left because of that pressure. And now I guess those issues are resolved because she's back in Fast 9, fine. And so that's the first one. The second one I'm going to clown around about is that there is this really weird quote from Michelle Rodriguez is basically saying, I'm going to paraphrase it here. Please go check out the oral history from Entertainment Weekly. But essentially she says it was a reality check for the writers because that's not how it is on the streets. And I was like, oh, okay.
Sorry, what?
Because there's a hierarchy. And I was like, oh, boy, okay.
I'm sorry,
and
what?
She goes on to talk about people know if you're not there and if you're not serious and if you're you're just there to model, that doesn't work. And I'm just like, what? How? Okay. And she worked
David
with
Ayer
Vin
got
Diesel.
A crash course in the hood, huh?
Well, that was the thing. I was just this, I don't know. Obviously there's a disconnect between Hollywood and reality a lot of the times, right? But to hear Michelle Rodriguez be that's not how it is on the streets. I was like, oh, okay. This detail is fascinating to me.
How is it on the streets?
How, I guess I wanted more of that. It was a surprise to me, and maybe that's a spot that I don't know in my knowledge. And I also think, as I'm done clowning around here, of how Michelle Rodriguez is saying this. Oh, she also is saying, "quote I had to school them." So obviously there was a lot going on here. But I think it's worth saying that Vin Diesel also had qualms with this script, and he helped Michelle Rodriguez get these changes through.
Okay. All
At
right.
least that is how the like oral history states it. So I think that's important to note.
Yeah.
Like when you're wanting to advocate for change, it's good to have people like that and change that script, however, whatever that may be. So that is what I wanted to share.
I have a follow-up question.
Mm.
Does that mean that Fast and Furious is more representative of what life on the streets is like? Because I have some concerns.
So, okay, if we're gonna take a tangent real quick, there
That's
is
fine.
there is a very distinct reason these movies make bonkers money.
Yes.
And it's not because I think it's like a
It's not the
representation of
plot, and it's not the
the
dialogue.
street. I don't think it's that at all. I think it's actually something like I think it's something else in this
Yeah.
kind of orbit of just like Michelle Rodriguez coming from a different background and being like, nobody would talk like this, or
Yeah,
this
that's
person
fair.
that you are writing wouldn't exist in the experiences that I've had. And I
Yeah.
think in a weird way, Fast and Furious has done such a good job of casting and getting a cast that
Mhm.
is not just one white people, but people
Right.
from various backgrounds and like having various, not even like skill sets, but just from different industries. Like
Yeah.
Ludacris doesn't really rap anymore, but
No.
he's there. Gal Gadot was a model before she
Yep.
like was in a Fast and Furious movie. So like pulling all these people from different
Did the
parts
woman
of
who
like,
played Cara Dune, wasn't she in one of them too?
yes, Gina Carano was
Gino
a
Carano was
villain.
in one of
Oh
them. She
shoot,
was
kind of spoiler. Sorry.
so it's okay,
Yeah,
Brian.
Gina Carano was in one.
Yeah.
And like just pulling in, like it
Yeah,
just has such a wide appeal because it's appealing to all of these quadrants, whether you're a dude, a lady,
that's
whether you
true.
know Ludacris's
That's fair.
music or not,
That's
whether you
fair.
know, like I think Gina Carano did a little bit of MMA and she did the
Yeah, she
gladiators,
was
like
I feel like I remember that. She was distinctly an MMA fighter, and then her
yeah.
big
And
launch
so just
into
well, and then Jason Statham,
yeah.
like you're bringing in a
I mean,
whole
you
other
had a
portion
whole
of audience that knows him from. So it's just like
yeah, you had a
these
whole
just have
offshoot of
such
movies.
wide appeal.
Yeah. I mean, you don't make spin-offs of like Hobbs and Shaw that get their own like
Oh,
entire storyline
right.
without there being some staying power to this particular topic, whatever it may be. I mean,
Yeah.
these movies are entertaining for a reason, and
Oh,
each
yeah.
person, I mean, and I think I should really sit down and watch
I mean,
them again before, I
yes.
mean, because F9 comes out in
Fine.
not F9 comes
Fine.
out in like June. So I feel like I
Yes.
have, if I watch one a week between now and end of June, I should be able to make it. But here's my other question, and we're
What's
staying,
that?
and then we can move on to a different topic.
All
I have
right.
heard rumors that there is a different order to watch them in than the
Oh my
order in
gosh.
which they are released. And I want to
Okay.
know, Brian, because you are the films in black and white Fast and Furious
Oh
expert.
no. Oh
Is there
no.
an order you should be watching them in?
So here's okay. It like it's good when I have to be like stick with me here.
Yeah.
So essentially I feel like I'm also getting into like Star Wars thing here.
No,
Like,
you are
okay,
fine.
here's how you watch the movies. Um, but essentially what ended up happening was Tokyo Drift
Yes.
is your culprit here of
Uh
why we
huh.
even have to
Watch
have
them
this
out of order.
conversation.
Yep.
Because basically it's the release order versus chronological order of
Yep.
what happens. Um, and basically what happens is that Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift
Yep.
takes place after Fast and Furious 6. So essentially, the reason that there's even a
Okay.
watch order is because they have to retcon
Okay.
somebody's death. Spoilers for Fast and Furious movies.
Yeah.
His name is Han, and
Yep.
he dies. There is
He
a
dies, but
character
he's also
death.
in the trailer for 9.
Yeah, like I said, let's just leave it. Let's
Everybody,
just
it's a
leave it
Fast and
there.
Furious movie. This isn't Scorsese, so just everybody stick with us.
Right. So, I mean, essentially, so basically, that's why they had to do this was because they really liked his character.
Okay.
They really liked Han as a character, so they wanted to keep putting him in these movies. Like, totally cool, right? We've
Makes
seen that a
sense.
ton of times, but now you have this issue where it's like, okay, it's Fast and Furious 1, 2. Then they named one of them Fast and Furious, didn't give it a number. That's the fourth one released. Then you have Fast 5, Fast and Furious 6. Then you watch Tokyo Drift if you're watching it in chronological order. Then Furious 7. Then Fate of the Furious, which is 8. Fate 8. And then you watch Hobbs and Shaw, which is a spin-off, but technically after.
Still in the Fast and Furious universe, because
Yeah,
everything
and we won't
has
know
its
until
own
Fast
universe.
9, but like apparently that might Hobbs and Shaw might happen after F9.
Oh,
So
Jesus
it's
Christ.
very confusing. But the whole reason we're talking about this, Doug, is because a character death happened and they liked the actor that played him and they wanted to keep putting him in movies. That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Okay. So, films in black and white listeners, I will be doing a Doug Wagner dives into Fast and Furious, starting from Fast and Furious all the way to F8. And I'm going to try very hard to hop on and do a bonus episode after every one, just 10 minutes, what I thought, what happened, recapping. So just stick with us. I'm promising that now, because that's my accountability for actually sitting down and watching them.
I mean, I think we should also talk about this, the three of us, because I think I feel like you need an anchor. Like I feel like you need a hand, and I don't know how many Marcus has watched. I have watched all of them because my wife loves them. Yeah. It's like Jurassic Park to her. It's like Jurassic Park but cars.
She was incredulous when she heard that I had not seen them after Tokyo Drift.
Yes,
when you said that there was Fast and Furious, like and I was like, that's 4. That's the clear indicator that I was like, really? And then it just went off from after that. So,
well, honestly, people love to like give Star Wars a hard time for numbers, right? But then it's like you have Fast and Furious, and you didn't even number one of your movies, jerks. Like
you randomly put some place you put Tokyo Drift in the middle of it, then turns out, surprise, you didn't even need to watch that shit until later.
I mean, it's the equivalent of like Star Wars Episode 4, Star Wars Episode 5, Star Wars. Okay, Star Wars Episode 7. Like it's just it doesn't make any sense. It's fine. It's a movie. It's a franchise about cars going fast and going through.
That's like, very true. That's very
true. But yeah, we should definitely figure something out.
Yeah, we should chat about that. But I would like to do that. That would be fun. Maybe even if, since there's 8 of them, you do them in batches of like 2.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That'd be a ton of fun.
And you know who we should get to do 9 with us?
Who's that?
We should get Tim Bingham to do 9 with us.
Yes.
Because he loves those movies. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, anyway, we have spent an obscene amount of time on Fast and Furious. So I am going to take a hard right and talk about the Golden Globes. So anybody who watched this year's Golden Globes can admit that there was some representation issues across the board. Mm-hmm. The Hollywood Foreign Press Association is a small group of journalists who typically award that give out the Golden Globes. And it was kind of in an organizational crisis because there's a lot of A-list talent that didn't feel like that they were getting the representation. And so currently the Hollywood Foreign Press Association has 90 members and said on Monday, I think it was released today, that they want to add 20 members specifically focusing on recruiting Black members and people of color. Membership, they want to increase it by 50% over the next 18 months. And so realistically, they are actively putting pen to paper to try to solve some of their issues as it relates to diversity, inclusion, and just representation from Hollywood and in the awards process. Mm-hmm. The board wrote in a letter announcing the changes, quote, "These past few months have been difficult for us all, and we appreciate your understanding and patience through this transformative period in our industry. For the past 60 days, we have worked hard to come up with a plan of action, culling ideas from the members as well as outside entities to present a cohesive and comprehensive proposal. We have engaged in a much-needed deep introspection with the help and guidance of our outside advisors, experts in diversity and inclusion, and our media partners. Together, we have created a roadmap for transformational change within our organization." So this is huge. This is really, really cool. They apparently got a lot of public relations firms and others to take a look at their policies. And NBC was part of the reason why this had all happened, because essentially NBC said that it's not representative of their organization. So they threatened to not even air the Golden Globes on NBC
I
anymore.
didn't know that.
And basically, NBC Universal said, like, if this organization is going to remain on NBC, they're going to have to adopt this quickly. And so
Oof.
yeah. And I mean, and there's also some other issues, like Philip Burke was a former 8-term Hollywood Foreign Press president. And he sent an email to members saying that the Black Lives Matter organization was a racist hate movement. He'd also been accused of sexually assaulting the actor Brendan Fraser, but was allowed to remain a member after the incident determined was a joke. Yeah, man, this is
awful.
Like just top to bottom. This organization is a shit show. Like they are a hot mess. So this, like, hey, yeah, we got to fix this, everybody. And so I got that article from Variety, and I encourage all of our listeners, go read the article, because it is, like I said, it is absolutely nuts. I mean, and the other thing is that even with those past scandals, it's this lack of representation and diversity that has been the biggest issue, because other awards bodies have become such a huge, I mean, you can write off the Academy, because the Academy is relatively like nameless and faceless to a certain extent, while the Hollywood Foreign Press is journalists. So the fact that they are so like tone deaf about what's going on across the nation and the representation in Hollywood, I mean, is pretty staggering. So yeah, they're going to try and figure this stuff out. But there you have it. Golden Globes trying to fix their shit.
Well, and they got a long way to go here, because the LA Times did a report, and I think you referenced it too, but I didn't know this, so it's only 87 members.
Yep. 90, I think, is where they were at last time. But yeah, you're right.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. And and I always knew the Golden Globes were like diet Oscars. Even growing up, it was like, oh, it's the Golden Globes tonight, and I was like, okay, like these are like the
Guild, Screen Actors Guild, like Screen Actors Guild, this one, then Oscars. It was kind of in that sandwich, like more important than the Screen Actors Guild, but definitely not as important as the
oh my gosh,
Oscars.
like the one with the least prestige, because it honestly just feels like a group of people who have been anointed by this powerful organization. None of them have to be critics or actors or anything. They just get to just do whatever they want with no repercussion, because it's their own organization. So I hope, I mean, I didn't know anything about those things you mentioned, by the way, about the president. All of those things.
Their former president had an issue with, there was that issue with potentially sexually assaulting Brendan Fraser. And then there was a whole other issue with the movie Burlesque, which I think is insane as well. Let me pull this
Christina
Yes.
Aguilera vehicle Burlesque with Cher. Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So
yeah, let
me see if I can find. Okay, even before the crisis, the HFPA. I'm reading directly from the article at this point. The Hollywood Foreign Press has been accused of enormous ethical lapses in the past. In 2011, their former publicist, Michael Russell, sued the organization, accusing the members of engaging in a payola scheme. The group's frequently bizarre journalist output, as well as its penchant for recognizing the likes of Burlesque. So the fact that Burlesque got a Golden Globe after it was so wildly regarded as a terrible movie, basically their former publicist was like, there's no way that there wasn't a payout to the Hollywood Foreign Press for getting that award, which entirely waters down the authority of that board to begin with. So all of those things, top to bottom, Black Lives Matter is an anti-hate, as a hate group. Their former president being accused of sexually assaulting somebody.
Get out.
Joke or not, like, you know what I mean? Like, they did an investigation and found that those weren't credible accusations, but either way, not good. And then paying for awards, basically. Yeah, man, they're a hot mess.
I mean, and I hope this brings positive change, right? I want to be the optimist here that they're adding members, but I mean, even looking at this Los Angeles Times report, nobody in that group is a person of color. Like, that is just, I don't know how you get to that point because that is not reflective of my world.
That's not
So
reflective
I
of
don't know
any
how you
world.
can. Right. It exactly. So I hope this does make a difference. I feel like they would need to like drill down a little bit more to like the bedrock of what
Yeah,
they're doing here. But I know
for
there's a
sure.
lot of money because it's the only show. I understand why it has staying power is because it's
Uh-huh.
the only show that gets TV and movie people together.
Yep.
And I mean, not everybody loves a good news cycle where it's like, hey, this TV star's mingling with this movie
Yep,
star,
for sure.
and
Yep.
then it's like, there's like, I don't know, you get enough
Yeah.
stuff out of that to
Yeah,
make an
for sure.
article or tweet thread. I don't know.
Right. Well, and it goes
I
back to
hope
like the
this helps.
we had this conversation last week when we were covering the
Yes.
Oscars. We had this conversation of like the authority of award shows to give out this type of recognition.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't see how this helps. You know what I mean? Like hearing this and finding all of this out is like, oh shit. So nothing you did was above board. Like it was
Yeah.
all like suspect. I mean, I appreciate they had some recognition of like outside groups, like bringing in people who are experts in other
Yeah.
firms and things like that to do that. I mean, I wish it didn't take everyone being like, how come a person of color hasn't won an award in like forever? Like, why
Yeah.
has that not happened?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I feel I wish it didn't take that long to get there, but change sometimes is a hard road. So I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also I'll say this too. I've done a lot of work with diversity and community organizers, and I feel like one of the things that I hear a lot that I feel like applying to this is that
Yep.
you can have this institution that is clearly racist, that
Yep.
they're not making decisions based on like they're just doing what they feel like.
Right.
And when you're trying to engage in that work, you have to get to the bedrock. You can't just be like, "Oh, we're gonna add some folks of
Yep.
color. That's what
Yep.
you want, right?"
Right,
And then
everybody. This will
it's
fix it.
this right, and it's this horrible cycle that I've heard from people I've talked to where it's like, "Oh, I'm the only person of color in this environment, and I'm gonna try to enact these changes, but then I get burnt out because I'm the only person of color in this environment,
Yeah.
and then I leave." And again, this is from an experience someone has shared with me, and this
Yeah.
cycle of like why it can be really hard to show up in these white spaces. So
Right.
I really hope that this does change, but
Oh, for sure.
I am concerned that that cycle could happen.
I mean, it's not just the numbers on a board. Like it's not just the
Right.
numbers at a board or at any organization, to be honest with you. Like it's not just the numbers, it's the systems in place to support the numbers. And a lot of
Yeah.
people think it's representation first, then support second, because we'll bring people here who are from marginalized groups, whatever they may be. Race is
Right.
not the only. So from
Yeah, you're
whatever
right.
they may be, then they bring them into that organization and they go, tell us how to fix it. Well, no, we can't do that. Well, we'll
Oh,
try
you
to do
want us
that.
to do what?
Right.
No, 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 no.
Like you want us to wait. You want us to do what? Like, yeah. So I think it can be really challenging. So I agree with you, Brian. I hope this is the big announcement that they're trying to diversify
Yeah.
and bring in some new representation. I simultaneously hope that they'll do some continued soul searching and that the conversation doesn't stop there. Yeah, I
Totally.
do appreciate though NBC Universal hitting them in their wallet and
Yeah.
essentially saying like, no, 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 no. Like you even want to have an award show on a public
Right.
access station because it's on
Yeah.
NBC. Everybody gets an NBC station for free,
Yep.
even if you don't have cable.
Yep.
You get kicked off of that. Suddenly your representation,
I mean, yeah.
your public relations piece of telling people who you are and why you're important, that goes right out the window. It doesn't, I mean,
Totally.
there's no one can access you. So why exist?
Totally. I
Yep.
agree.
Yep. Cool. That's my first piece. So there you
Right.
have it.
All right. So I have a small Marvel snippet. We're going to be talking more Marvel
For
later in the
sure. For sure.
podcast, but my small Marvel snippet is that in an interview with Rolling Stone, Kevin
Mhm.
Feige was talking about how Doctor Strange was originally going to show up in the finale of WandaVision. So
Oh.
right. So he goes on to talk about how essentially they had this plan for Doctor Strange to show up in the finale to help Wanda. Essentially, they didn't have a ton of
Okay.
details. The key detail, though, that is satisfying to me is that Doctor Strange was the reason for the commercials and the way that they aired and in the manner of which they aired.
Oh.
Yes. And so they even
Okay.
toyed with the idea of Doctor Strange essentially being in one of those commercials and getting Benedict Cumberbatch to get in one of the commercials to make it very clear to everybody.
Oh.
Yeah. So the one
Okay.
thing I want to highlight though is that the creative team and Kevin Feige said, we shouldn't do this. This is going to take away from Wanda. And that
Okay.
was one of the main drivers of Doctor Strange not appearing in WandaVision. And they had to rewrite a significant portion of Multiverse of Madness, which I think is a clue of how intertwined these two characters are going to be moving forward.
Sure.
And that was the piece of news that I wanted to bring. And I thought that was, I think that's fascinating.
Yeah.
And I love that they wanted to make sure Wanda had her moment and that it wasn't overshadowed by this guy just showing up being like, Wanda, I'm going to tell you everything that's happening.
That does,
yeah.
That does help. That's a nice relief to have. That tells me a little bit more, or I'm going to make some inferences from that are not just pertaining to WandaVision. The first is I'm really glad they didn't include it. Like, I'm really glad that they didn't just jam him in there. Because the other thing I appreciated about WandaVision was those commercials being vague. Because it's just the Twitter buzz alone of like, well, they showed that commercial like with XYZ thing, so that's what this could be. I mean, that was a really deep setup from the get-go that I think is really clear and really fun to like look at. And to consider looking back on it. The other thing is that tells me that maybe some of our problems with Falcon and the Winter Soldier were more the writing than necessarily the creative direction. Because
I agree.
You know what I mean? Like, and we dove into that. So go back and listen to our bonus episode that dropped on Saturday to really hear the deep dive. But I mean, the fact that they took so much time and consideration and they were willing to rewrite a movie based on what happened in one of their shows that WandaVision was the premier property that they wanted to lead with. And Falcon and the Winter Soldier was, this is really cool, but we're still figuring this out and there's going to be more to this. So that tells me a lot about just their creative direction with their TV shows.
Well, and I think the other thing here is that I'm really happy to at least have it said and on record that someone is like, no, this is going to be really cruddy towards this woman character. I think it's also really important that even though the show is called WandaVision, the story is about Wanda.
Oh, for sure.
And if you're looking at all of the MCU, like Captain Marvel's the only other woman who is like even headlined her own thing. So I think it was a responsibility to make sure they got it right and not have this like all powerful dude just show up and be like, Wanda,
somebody
I'm
called
tell
the
you
Sorcerer Supreme literally like roll up and be like, let me teach you how to be a magician.
Right. Like I would have not liked that.
That would have been a really unsatisfying ending.
I mean, even in our WandaVision recap, we weren't super satisfied with how some of the finale wrapped up some of the things just from a storytelling point. But I am satisfied with that show that it let Wanda stand on her own mistakes and all, even if
for sure.
I wasn't
she wasn't held accountable for them.
Well, that too. And I and on that note, in this Rolling Stone piece, there's going to be an oral history as well of WandaVision. We talked about it with Fast and the Furious, but there's going to be one for WandaVision. And Elizabeth Olsen does push back on that critiques that we had, that there was no punishment for her. It seems like she's teasing there's going to be something down the way of, where she went physically is a place that no one can find her. And because she knows that she is going to be held accountable, I think she has a tremendous amount of guilt. So if I'm using my critical thinking analytical eye here, what it seems like is we may deal with some of this in Multiverse of Madness, or they didn't expect the reaction they got and they're saying, hey, she's dealing with this internally and we just didn't show it, which either could be true. But
it gives you like the corporate answer, like that vice president, we are dealing with this internally. That vice president has been fired. There's no reason to send investigators. We've got
Look,
this.
Wanda conducted an investigation on herself.
She found herself
and
responsible.
and she is taking actions to hold herself responsible.
Like a
She is no
bad, like it's a
longer
bad fraternity. Like, no, 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 no. David fucked up at a party. We kicked him out. There's no reason anybody has to come in here and look at what happened. All you need to know is he's not a member anymore. Like,
right. Right. And I was having a discussion with a few other Marvel fans, with some folks that I know, earlier this week, and they're like, you know what? If you were Wanda and you were like, oh, I just totally held this whole town like of people like hostage, you would probably like want to just get out too. You're not there like I should really do the work. No, you're scared. You want to get out. So I get it from that point, but
it is the East Coast. They don't necessarily have a great track record with witches. You know,
oh,
like you know what I mean? Like it's not like what are these people gonna do to me? Oh, I've read this before. I gotta get out of here. I gotta get out of here.
No. Yeah, which I appreciate another perspective. It's made me reflect.
Oh, that's nice.
But,
yeah, that's really cool though. And you're right, Brian. Like that is I would have been really pissed if he had just I would have been excited, but if all that was a setup to connecting the two of them, I would have been mad about that. It's almost similar to the like we didn't get a whole lot of Sam's development just so he could put on the wings and call himself Captain America at the end. Like that's the reason why I'm irritated with that. You know what I mean? Like that's the same. What we saw in the most recent one is what we didn't see here, and look how much more satisfied we were with that show. So I think that's totally the last point that I'll make.
Absolutely.
Awesome. That's a great little tidbit. And we will dive more into Marvel stuff here in a second. Before we do that, I want to jump into some streaming numbers. So I have, I'm not replacing Brian on the streaming numbers beat.
But this is a group effort. And sometimes you need to take a break. So
I am
Doug, take it away.
I'm reporting live from Seattle to give you some of these Amazon numbers. So I think for some of us, I don't know about you, Brian, but I think we oftentimes look at Amazon Prime because it's a shipping service. We oftentimes go like, okay, whatever with your streaming numbers. You literally give it to people. It's like being given like a coupon for 10% off. It's like, thanks for the bonus. I don't really need it, but it's nice to know when it's there. Well, we're through the first quarter of 2021, and Amazon has indicated that they apparently just hit a home run with their streaming numbers, and that they have reported 175 million Prime members have streamed TV shows and movies in the past year. So more than 175 million members have streamed TV shows or movies in the past year. Jeff Bezos revealed that figure today, saying that their video streaming hours, again, because we're dealing with hours, their video streaming hours are up more than 70% when compared to the last year. He also noted that Amazon Studios received 12 Oscar nominations, and now has 12 Oscar nominations and 2 wins, and called out the performance of the company's AWS cloud division, which has a 54 billion annual sales run rate. So basically, Amazon's over here just like straight crushing it.
I mean, yeah.
They didn't really give a whole like details, and the article which I'm getting from Variety doesn't compare it to that of like HBO Max. It doesn't compare it to that of like Hulu. It does compare it to Netflix. Netflix reported that as of the end of quarter one, Netflix reported 207 million subscribers. So about, give or take, 32 more million subscribers than what Amazon is claiming. The other thing to keep in mind is Amazon inked a 10-year deal with NFL, grabbing exclusive rights to Thursday Night Football.
Wow, 10 years?
Yes. So starting in 2023, they will get the exclusive 10-year deal to Thursday Night Football at the price tag of 1.32 billion with a B dollars per year.
Oh my gosh.
They also said that they spent $11 billion on TV series, movies, and music for their services last year, which was up 40% from 2019. So they put forth the money to figure this out. The other thing to keep in mind is that they have 200 million Prime members. So 75%, if my math is close, of their current Prime members streamed movies or TV shows in this first quarter. So these numbers are kind of like bonkers. Like they're just kind of all over the place.
It's so hard to put your arms around this because I feel like I'm not trying to be like we live in a society, but we live in a world now where
okay,
it's
Jared.
so hard not to just have. Are you going to cut that for the intro now for the song? We live in a society.
I need you to understand that. Yep.
Oh my gosh. But
I'm gonna cut it out of the podcast, Brian. So like you're gonna say it there, and gonna be like, oh shit, Brian says that we live in a society line, and then you never say it in the actual.
Oh my gosh. Oh no, I'll never say that again. In any case, we have all these services that like piggyback off of one another. I mean, Prime, it's like what you said, it's a shipping service. But it's also, you can watch Daniel Tiger on it if you want.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I use it for.
Yeah, same. Also, Daniel Tiger, fantastic show for your kiddos.
Yeah, for sure.
You need to hear that. They're good lessons. In any case, I mean, I guess it's so weird to kind of couch this in with everything because like HBO Max comes free with some AT&T subscriptions. Verizon had a thing. I think with Disney Plus too at one point. So it's all like paired up and they all have dance partners. And so it's really hard to tear these numbers away from that. I guess my biggest takeaway from you saying that piece of news is that I think they're obviously Amazon wants to continue being part of this market share. They want to be active and involved with it. I just don't see how they make a significant reach into this market like with Netflix and Disney Plus. I don't think Amazon Prime is ever going to be in that same conversation as Netflix or Disney Plus. I don't think.
And that's the thing. You know what's funny about that, Brian? Because as I kind of like pull through this article to mention some other things, it's not that they don't have the money to do that either. Because if you look at their, like, they have more than 200 million Prime subscribers. The reported revenue of that 200 million people is $108.5 billion.
That's made up.
They have the ability, you could bankroll essentially 100 tenants, right?
Backwards and
just to put it in perspective, you could bankroll a high, like their studio arm could do so much more. It's just that Amazon has this weird model where it's like, no. We don't want to turn out one quality thing. We want to turn out 50. Watch it maybe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're not looking. I mean, and granted, that's me again taking a dig at someone who got 12 Oscar nominations. But it's still one of those things of like, you're still your business model is to operate in the red. Like your business model is to operate at a loss. So the fact that your subscription service has turned in $105 billion is insane. You could be doing more with that. It's just, they're not. Like they're basically like, it is what it is. And the other thing to mention, and then I'll turn it back over to you.
No, go ahead.
That according to Google and other like analysts, this is all COVID fueled momentum, thus bringing us back to the conversation of, will this, as things open up in quarters 3 and 4, will we see a decline or will people stick with it? And that will be the true marker.
I agree. And I think one of the other anecdotal things here that I'll add is that I've never heard someone say, oh, well, I got to get Amazon Prime for this show. I've never in my life, I've never heard anyone say that. Now, obviously, you could probably tweet us and be like, well, my mom did. And that's fine.
Great, and The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is hilarious. I'm sure they're great, but I didn't sign up for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. But I feel like the whole thing of this is like, oh, hey, you wanted 2-day shipping. Okay, you can go watch Daniel Tiger now. You know, I just, that's what's always so weird.
Your kids love Pete the Cat. Well, get your shit in 2 days, and then you got 3 seasons of Pete the Cat that they can watch. So, yeah.
And I also want to say, they have a Lord of the Rings show coming that is like bonkers money.
Yes.
And by that, I mean, it costs a lot of money to make a show like Lord of the Rings. You look at the HBO budget for Game of Thrones. I mean, they were spending like, I think 80 million at one point on 2 episodes.
According to this, I just pulled this from the Hollywood Reporter. Amazon's The Lord of the Rings will cost $465 million for just one season.
That is one season.
One season is going to run them $465 million.
I mean, what do you do with that? Like, also, this is totally leading to a
Yeah.
conversation of like Amazon. You have like you need what is happening here? You need some
Mm-hmm.
regulation because what is happening here? Like that is a bonkers amount of money.
The other thing that's insane about this is that, okay, and we're still kind of in that Amazon Prime,
Yeah.
it cost Amazon $250 million just to get the rights to use the Tolkien property.
Oh my
Like just to
gosh.
use, call it the Lord of the Rings show.
Good point.
It cost them $250 million.
Man, okay. You know what? Tangent. If I'm Jeff Bezos and I got 200 billion with a billion
Yeah,
dollars, even after my divorce or whatever.
right.
I why even buy the Lord of the Rings rights? Just do you are the one of the richest people on the dudes, like one of the richest people on the dudes, one of the richest people on the planet. First, solve world hunger and like homelessness, and then
Man,
you'll probably still have enough money left over to
make
make
your
your
own.
own fantasy series. Just
Yeah,
just do it yourself. Like
but I
it's just
mean, yeah, but again, that's Amazon. It's
yeah,
we don't
good
want to
point.
make our own. We're not in the creative business.
Right.
We want to give you the shit
Yeah.
we know you already love easily. So you're
Right.
right. Like people might not sign up, Brian, for the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel or
Yeah.
for Fleabag or for other things, but they'll sure as shit sign up for Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
So I think that that's what they're banking on. Oh, it's going to
Yep.
cost us 700 800 million
Oh my
dollars
gosh.
between buying the rights and then producing the show just in and of itself. We'll make that back in no time. Like that's not even
Yeah.
$1 billion. Our Prime memberships alone got us 108 of those $1 billion, so we're
I,
not even worried about it. We have 90
yeah.
we have $107 billion left.
I mean, I can't. That's so ethereal to me. I just can't even
Yes.
wrap my mind around that much money just laying around.
No,
Like, I
it makes
can't.
no sense. You're right. And if I could just
Woof.
really quickly, one more thing before
Do
we get
it.
to Marvel.
Do it.
Maybe this motherfucker should pay his fair share of taxes just real fast. Like, I mean, the man made
Oh, yes. Yes.
$108 billion.
Yes.
Really? Guys? Nobody's
Yeah.
like, I didn't want to make this a political statement, but
I mean,
really? That's a
I,
shitload of money.
like,
And you don't have to pay that shit at all?
yeah.
Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, pay your taxes, pay your fair share because we all lift together. I
Right.
totally agree.
Yeah. So that's just we'll leave that right there. But
Sounds good to
Brian,
me.
we have some Marvel news to get
Oh
to.
boy, do we?
Brian, I will give them a rundown of the trailer
Yes.
if you want to kind of spend some time talking about all of the things as we kind of piece it out. So just really quickly,
Yeah.
today, out of nowhere, Marvel gave us all this like really fun little present in the form of a like, we're excited to go back to the movie theater with you. And in this, they highlight some of their biggest. First off, the quotes from Stan Lee are awesome.
Oh man,
But
that
they
really
have
got me in the
these.
heart.
Yeah, they absolutely did. So they have these Stan Lee quotes overlaid of other like of basically the past 10 years leading up to Endgame. And then the second half was really forecasting what's coming forward, including things like Black Widow and Shang-Chi and Eternals and other things. And it kind of forecasted what was coming. Brian, do you want to give them a rundown of all the different pieces of the things that they saw for what was coming in the future?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm also going to start. We're just going to go in chronological order of
Yep.
where we are now in May 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And they only highlighted, I think it's important to note here, they only highlighted the movies here.
Yep.
So I'm
Yep.
only going to be
Good
talking about
point.
the movies. So July 9th, 2021, Black Widow will release.
Mm-hmm.
September 3rd, 2021, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
Yep.
November 5th, 2021, Eternals.
Mm-hmm.
And then December 17th, 2021, Spider-Man No Way Home. If you're keeping count, we have 4 Marvel movies coming this year. And there
Yep.
are 7 months left
Yeah.
of the year. 8 if you count this one.
Yeah.
So going to 2022. March 25th, 2022 is Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. May 6th, 2022 is Thor, Love and Thunder.
Yep.
July 8th, 2022 is Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. November 11th, 2022 is The Marvels, which is apparently the Captain Marvel sequel, and we'll talk more about that. February 17th, 2023 is Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantum Mania. And lastly, May 5th, 2023 is Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 3.
Yep.
So that is the cut and dry list.
And the other thing, and I'll kind of give you a quick rundown of the TV shows that are coming, because all in all, between their movies and their TV shows, they have 10 properties that were scheduled to release in 2021. And Brian, we have only seen 2 of them. We have only seen WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. As far as TV shows, this is what we have left to see in this year. We got Loki that's scheduled to come out here shortly. I feel like
June.
In June. So yeah, June 11th. Sorry. So yeah, June 11th is Loki. Then in late 2021, so after Shang-Chi, so after September, Miss Marvel is scheduled to come out. Then after Miss Marvel, you get Eternals, and then Hawkeye is scheduled to come out somewhere between Eternals and Spider-Man Far From No Way Home.
I'm sorry. Let me stop you. We're supposed to get Hawkeye this year?
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh. That is okay. I will. Okay.
So for everybody
want
that was
to happen.
Man, we didn't get a Marvel property in 2020. They're like, no, but you got 10 different ones in the space of you got 10 different ones in the space of 2021. So that's all that's coming. And Brian, that is a lot. What are maybe a couple things that you really liked from that like teaser sort of announcement trailer? Is there anything out of that like really jumped out as you as like got you jacked?
So I'm going to start off with the thing that grabbed my attention. I think it's a huge deal that we got a Black Panther title, Wakanda Forever.
Yep.
And it is really hard to take the Chadwick Boseman out of that and not get a little emotional just thinking about Wakanda Forever.
Yep.
Just the phrase and what it became a cultural touchstone overnight.
Oh, for sure.
So it's really just me feeling things, which translates really well into an audio format.
Yeah, it's great.
I think that
sign up for the Patreon to see Brian feel things.
It's great. I think the one thing I'll add here is Lupita Nyong did say that they were writing it in a way that was good for, having Chadwick Boseman not be present. They think it's respectful. I think, to me, this title shows that they're going to try to center it more on Wakanda, right? I'm just pulling this from
for sure
the title, but I still think the only 2 paths that they have available to them that I feel like it's going to resonate with the most people is making Shuri the Black Panther or having it be this ensemble thing where everybody Black Panther becomes more of an ideal than a person. And I think either of those things will resonate with people. So that's what I wanted to lead with. What about you, Doug? What did you take away from this?
There's 2 things that I really got genuinely excited for. The first is the Eternals. I didn't.
Oh my gosh, yes. We actually got footage from the Eternals.
Yeah, we actually got footage, and it looks like a gods hiding in plain sight style movie, and I really, really like those. Like the first Percy Jackson, like For Good or For Bad, I really enjoyed. So if we get some version of that, like in comic book format, I'm really genuinely excited about it. But yeah, that was something. I also really like Kumail Nanjiani as a comedian, as an actor. I really like him. So just across the board, getting some of that Eternals information was really cool. The other thing that I liked is I got a little bit more intrigued in Black Widow than I thought. You know what I mean?
I have been banging that drum for almost 2 years now. Yes.
There's something about this slate of footage that felt better. And I don't know
Okay.
what it is, and I don't know what it
Okay.
could be, but there's something about this particular like slot of footage in this like teaser
Yeah.
that we got that made me go, okay, all right, I'll
I,
watch that. I mean,
I
I'm still not sure and I'm still hesitant, but
yeah.
there's something about this one that I liked better. Maybe it's because I didn't see her fly through the air and have a sword fight battle on a
Okay.
falling plane.
First off, how dare you? That sounds rad as hell. Like, yeah, sign me. You tell me that, I'm buying a ticket day one to see Scarlett
Oh,
Johansson do that. That
okay.
sounds awesome.
But I don't know what it is. Like, I mean, I'm just genuinely curious to see what they go. It also makes me really cool because they spent some really like intentional time,
Yep.
like highlighting Natasha's sister in that teaser
Yep.
trailer, which tells me that if she's a very key part to phase 4, because otherwise you just glaze
I don't
by her
know.
and you move on. So
I
I'm
don't
curious
know.
to see what they do with that.
I, the Black Widow enigma is something that has entertained me quite a bit,
Oh, for sure.
and I am still on the train that Black Widow holds the keys to
Mm-hmm.
what is exactly going on in the MCU right now, especially with Falcon and Winter Soldier
Yep. Oof,
and
yep.
Contessa, who I'm sorry, that is Madam Hydra. She might not be Madam Hydra in the MCU, but she is
Yeah.
in the comics. She's not a good person.
She's not a good person.
I'm just gonna put that out
Yeah.
there. And Black Widow has the keys to figuring out why that is, and I really feel like there's something more than to what we're seeing.
Yep.
And maybe I'm wrong, and I'd be happy to be wrong, but it's just a feeling. It's just a gravity pulling me towards it. And I
Sure.
feel like we're going to know more about, the future of the MCU once we see Black Widow.
For sure. I completely agree with that. And so I'm very curious to see what they do with it. And I'm very curious to see what this all holds. I mean, the other thing that's really cool about like just all of the stuff that we had in the trailers is you got to see like a multiverse of madness, like more like close up logo that looked really, really cool. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantum Mania looks really, really cool. James Gunn got to debut the new logo for Guardians Volume 3.
Nice.
And then the other mystery at the tail end of this is, when is Fantastic Four coming? There's no release date listed.
No.
It was the only one without a release date. And that tells me that maybe they're waiting, or are they going to drop these pieces of information along the way as breadcrumbs that lead you there? I'm very curious to see what they end up doing with that, because I mean, the Fantastic Four have always been called the first family of Marvel. And it's very, very cool I'm very curious to that they're keeping that kind of shrouded and hidden a little bit. So I thought that was kind of interesting as well.
No, I agree. I'm glad that they just I'm glad that they just kind of kept it as like, look, we're doing this, but we have nothing.
Just give us a minute.
We have nothing to show you.
Guys,
we have nothing to give you.
We don't even know. We don't even know where the building's gonna go.
Yeah, like I'm really happy to hear that. So I'm happy the way that they did it.
Yep,
I am all over the place on Fantastic Four. I think symbolically, Fantastic Four represented a lot of what was happening in the culture of that time as well, in the 60s.
Yep.
I'm gonna plug an author here, Ramzi Fawaz. I saw him speak when I was working at another institution, and he wrote a book called The New Mutants, Superheroes and the Radical Imagination of American Comics. And one of his thesis is that the Fantastic Four is like the first queer family, and how Marvel Comics, intentionally or not, really they were some of the first to put into this, main media sphere for public consumption of this super not normal family, and that it was okay to not be normal, almost more than the X-Men, because it was this veil of like, we're the perfect family, but like, no, there's a rock monster. Clearly this is not the family I know. But I definitely check that book out if that sounds really cool to you.
That sounds really cool.
There's some great stuff in there about the mutants and X-Men as well. And there's actually a Superman in there. I know that's for Marcus. I'm going to advocate for him, but there's a good Superman bit in there. Going really back more to this Marvel news, though, the other thing that I want to touch on here is the Marvels. So I had no idea what this was. I I searched around the internet for probably a solid 10 minutes to understand it was a sequel to Captain Marvel.
Yep.
I that took me a bit. Now
Mm-hmm.
that I understand that, I think it's rad as hell.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it's going to be Monica Rambeau. It sounds like it's going to be Kamala Khan and Carol Danvers.
Uh-huh.
And I think this then would be the first Marvel property that it's all women as leads or multiple women leads for the
Uh-huh.
franchise, which I
Yeah.
think is something to say here.
Yep.
Obviously, we'll have Black Widow and Captain Marvel, but this would be the first group of women. And I
Uh-huh.
think that's pretty significant. And they're all coming from different backgrounds. And I think that could be really special. I really do. I think Brie Larson does really well in a group. I think
Yep.
she does really well when she has these tough concepts to play with, when she has other good folks to play off against. And I think
Mm-hmm.
Teyonah Parris shows that she can do that.
Yeah.
I am not familiar with how the Kamala Khan series is coming along, so I can't really
But
give
Brian,
any.
you don't have to wait very long because
Sure.
November, like
Apparently.
end of this year,
Yeah.
we will start to get that storyline. And what
Yeah.
makes me jacked about the Marvels, what makes me like super hyped about the Marvels is we're gonna get a taste of it
Yep.
now. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so we got a little taste. We got a
Mhm.
little taste at the end of WandaVision. So
Yep.
I can only assume, again, this is a Doug Wagner inference. This is
I love
not,
it.
I don't have any
Do it.
information to back this up. I
Do
can
it.
only assume that somehow Monica Rambeau is going to show up in Miss Marvel,
That would be
right?
awesome.
Because I mean,
I would love that.
if it's if you're talking about a trio of people and you're going to go, okay, we have
Yeah.
Monica Rambeau here, then we're going to get the Kamala Khan story here. Well, we
Yep.
might as well just put her heat in that story so that way
Yeah.
those two can come in and interact with. There's going to be that that has to have a crossover. I know that
Yeah.
I've said that about other Marvel TV shows before, but that one most certainly has to have a crossover at some point, right? Like it would be crazy
Yeah.
not to.
Well, and it depends on what exactly they go with. If they go the Inhuman route, which I
Mm-hmm.
think most likely they will, I think that there is a lot of space here for it to be cosmic. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I meant to say all of that the way I did.
Yes, you
And
did.
I think that that could be something really special
Oh, for sure.
because the only thing we've really seen in space is Guardians, and that's
Yeah.
fine. But I think that it's I kind of get Green Lantern vibes of just this group of people who
Oh, for
just
sure.
want to help the universe. And I've always been attracted to that concept because the universe is so big. How could you ever think you could help? And it's the people that have that
Yeah.
will and desire to do that that always inspire me. And so I think that could be really special, but who knows? I'm gonna say all this and then it's like, oh no, this is Earthbound and it's actually Prelude to Secret Invasion. Who knows?
Right.
But
And that's not
but
to mention like that has some casting rumors around it too.
oh my
Like
gosh.
there's all sorts of stuff.
I,
Marvel is ripe with rumor and ripe with
yeah.
speculation and ripe with like I don't know, maybe like
Yeah.
it's basically Kevin Feige playing like a 1950s schoolboy where you're like, Kevin, did you cast and write Secret Invasion already? And he's over there with one of those ridiculously large lollipops
Yep.
going like, I don't know, did I? Like like and it's just like cut the shit, Kevin, just tell me what you did. Like because
Seriously.
I'm excited about it, like very
Yeah.
excited about it.
Yeah, and to harken back to the conversation we had with Marcus on a previous episode too, like this really does feel like phase one in the dark of just we have
Mm-hmm.
no idea where any of this is going, and it's kind
Yeah,
of exciting. I know for other folks it's really frustrating because basically for the past 3-ish years we've known where Marvel was going to go. We all knew it was
mm-hmm.
going to Endgame. No matter what road you took, you were going to Endgame,
Yeah, that
and
was the
now it's
biggest
like
story to do
what?
first.
Yeah. And honestly, my hot take is that I don't think we're going to see a 3-phased approach to that. Like, it's
Mm-mm.
very possible we'll get one phase, one villain, and we'll move on because that's a whole lot of stuff moving. But I'd love to be proven wrong. I'd love to be
Right.
proven wrong. But I think that to orchestrate all that again would take way too much. And I feel like they could get the same return by
Sure.
doing, less work, essentially.
I think the other possibility is I think that there is also potential for there to be Marvel versus Marvel in a like the Avengers are well established, but if you throw the X-Men in there, it's very
Right.
possible that you have a Avengers versus X-Men scenario play out on the screen, which I would
Oh,
be
yeah.
absolutely here for. And it would be really cool. But I think that that's the next logical step is like, okay, they
Yep.
can unify when the threat is to all Earth. But what if they're
Yep.
just bickering and working their stuff out? Like, I think there's some other
Yeah.
things to be said there too. So,
And I definitely want to give a plug here. If you have the Marvel Unlimited app, go
yep,
read Avengers versus X-Men. It is
super cool book.
absolutely worth your time. In my
Absolutely
opinion, it
is.
is probably a top 3 crossover event up there
Mm-hmm.
with Civil War. I know a lot of
Yep.
people don't like Civil War, but as far as a cohesive story goes,
Uh-huh.
it is one of the better ones.
Yeah.
And
That
then
one's
the
yeah.
X-Men Inferno, but yeah.
My top 3 are Civil War, Avengers versus X-Men, and then I read I think it was Secret Wars, the one with Doctor Doom as a god. That one was really
Oh
good too.
man.
All 3 of those were good.
Yes. And honestly, I'm also waiting for Secret Wars to pop up here
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like that's really low hanging fruit to
Yeah.
make an Avengers movie where it's just like 10 Avengers versus 10 villains, call
Yeah.
it a day, and have it be a character study, almost like a black box thing.
Yeah.
But I know I'm getting out there.
Yeah.
Before we get too far away from this, one thing I do want to say is for the Eternals, now that we understand more what's happening here, and in other interviews, they've said that Gemma Chan is going to be the lead, essentially, if there was going to be a lead, which
Oh,
I think is
sure.
really weird phrasing.
Very weird.
But they're saying that Gemma Chan is going to be if you
The
had to call
main
somebody a lead, it's her.
protagonist of a
Yeah, the
team of
protagonist
protagonists. Yes.
for the Eternals. And I think that's really cool. I love her. She had a
Yeah.
very small bit in Captain Marvel as one of the Kree, and
Yep.
she died. Her character died. So I'm excited that she's going to be in the MCU, and it sounds like she's going to have a pretty significant role. I
For
think she's
sure.
really talented. She was also in Crazy Rich Asians, a ton of other
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and just wanted to give a bump for that.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's a good note, Brian. I didn't know that. I didn't read a whole lot up on that at all. So, yeah, just across the board, this is really exciting. I know that y'all have listened to us geek out about about Marvel and all the speculation, and a lot of it is, to be honest with you, a lot of what we've been talking about is where are they going, where they're speculating. But I think the exciting thing is that we will start to. What this trailer tells me is that sooner rather than later, we're going to start to get some answers, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, my money's on Black Widow. We're gonna know by the end of the year.
Oh,
Like
for sure. Yeah.
between the 4 Marvel movies
Yeah.
that we have, we'll know something.
Yeah. I mean, other things to keep in mind is after 2021 for TV shows, because we haven't really talked about those much. I just gave you the ones that are coming this year. I mean,
Right.
we've got a Moon Knight that's scheduled to come.
Um,
We've got a She-Hulk that's scheduled to come.
where is Blade? Where
That's the
in
other
the
thing that I have
like
questions of is that Blade just wasn't mentioned. So does that mean that Fantastic Four is scheduled to come before Blade? Because at this
dude,
point in time, you've announced Blade. Like
right.
people know who's in it and that it's happening, but you just didn't include it. So I have some questions on that end too of like, okay, so you just left it off.
Yeah.
What? Like
Yeah,
why? Like why did you do that?
Obviously COVID like has thrown a
Mm-hmm.
wrench into a
Oh,
lot
for
of
sure.
production schedules, but I find it is a very gaping missing property when you're
Oh,
doing something like this and you have Marshala Ali, an
yeah, it's
Oscar winner.
right. Yeah.
So I don't have a lot of reasons to give Marvel that they didn't even mention it. Not even like, by the way, you could have chunked this and been like, oh yeah, it's coming July 2024,
You could have done
everybody.
what you did with Fantastic Four and not put a
Right,
date, but you
right,
didn't.
right.
Like that's weird.
It's
It's like
strange.
actively weird.
I don't like how it makes me feel. Like it just
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
He's
It's
he's
strange
hiding up in those
and
Marvel rafters like he's really committed to the vampire role and he's sitting up there in the dark and he's scared to come out. All
and
right.
honestly, I would love for them to like pull a surprise, like, I don't know, like maybe he shows up in Loki and he's like, I'll be around. Like
Yeah.
something silly like that.
You
I'd
always
be
know where to
fine with
find me.
that. Like, yeah, right? Like if it's like a weird cameo in like in Black Widow, that's not gonna happen. But
No, but it'd be very funny if it did.
something like that would satisfy me, just to at least be
Uh-huh.
like, we know it's happening. It's good. Like, trust us.
Mhm.
Just yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's just me.
Yeah, I agree. It does make you feel weird, but it also makes me wonder like, okay, so are they just saying that like Fantastic Four doesn't have a date, and they're going to announce, because when's Disney
Right.
Day in December? Are they going to announce, surprise? Not only is it written, but it's casted and it's coming in a year. Like, are they?
Right.
Is that the end
Maybe.
game with this? Like, of like there.
Doug.
I'm embarrassed and upset that I even went there.
No,
But
I
like, is
love
that the
it.
end game with this? Of like, okay, we left Blade off, but that's because we actually are gonna jam pack your life
Wow.
with some Fantastic Four in there too.
My Infinity War of a prediction. No, that was not natural at all. It was awful. I do think what's interesting though here is that we had this Disney investor meeting
Day,
in
yeah.
December. None of this was mentioned. They were
No.
obviously waiting to see what happened with theaters. This trailer is a direct result of clearly Disney feeling confident enough that we're going to at least have enough people vaccinated to go to theaters, that theaters are going to be open.
That's the end line of the whole trailer,
right.
is we will see you at the movies.
Yeah. And I definitely thought, and I will eat my hat here, I definitely thought that this would be a model moving forward where any Marvel movie, you'd be able to get it on Disney Plus for $30. It seemed like a win-win-win for everybody. And it seems that is not the case. It is just going to be Black Widow. That's it. And then the rest are in the theaters. And so I don't think, I'm sad, but I understand that we're probably not going to have this model moving forward, even though it makes it far more accessible for people. They can watch it on their own time. There's so many other pros here, but obviously the movie theaters are wanting that revenue back. And I totally understand that. It's just too bad that there wasn't a middle ground, because I'll be honest, as a parent of 2 kids and a busy guy myself, I would have loved to just been like, yeah, I will watch all these Marvel movies that Friday night after I put my kids down. No problem.
Yeah.
Like, done.
I mean, that was kind of our rhythm with WandaVision. Like, Marcus would inevitably watch it during the day, and then we would both sort of watch it at
7 a.m.
At different times during the night. But then at 9:00, we'd hop on our group chat and just talk to each other about our theories. So I would have absolutely would have been here for that. But I think you're right, Brian. I think this is a design this wasn't just for fans to get them excited. This was for like AMC and Regal Cinemas and others to be like, we're coming back, and you can see all the shit that we're going to get people excited for. So don't panic. Like, it's okay.
Yeah. No, it's very clearly a signal to the industry and customers and the movie theaters that this is their goal and that's how they're going to support them. So yeah, lots going on with this very short trailer.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that was kind of our news for the week. Brian, anything else that you want to mention?
Nothing more I really want to mention. By the time this podcast is out, May the 4th will have passed. The Bad Batch is a new Disney Plus series. I'll probably talk about it next week. The early screeners and reactions are that it is good and it feels more like the expanded universe of before Disney rather than like currently. And Brian, it takes less time.
I heard a rumor the first episode is scheduled to be like 72 minutes.
Yes, it is 70 minutes. The first episode is 70 minutes.
Oof. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, and you have to deal with apparently they deal with Order 66 and how they're clones.
Okay.
So the other feedback I've been hearing is that it basically takes less time to find its groove than Clone Wars or Star Wars Rebels, which, as a fan of Rebels more than Clone Wars, I am ecstatic, because the whole first season of Rebels was like, we're a kids show. And then they just ditched that at the end. And they're like, nah, whatever. This is Star Wars.
We're not a kids show.
And then Clone Wars, it was just like, what is this show? And then that was the entire show.
I was just going to say, you said that Clone Wars got into a groove. I was like, Brian, what season did that happen in?
I mean, I know I'm going to upset some people, but yeah, Clone Wars as an entire show is a civics lesson.
It was a civics lesson, but with Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's like it was like, hey, what if we talked about banking deregulation and peace negotiations and make it a kids show? And everyone was like, you're gonna what? And here's the thing, it was great for a ton of people. It's not my jam.
People fucking love that,
but people loved it. But in any case, you're not dealing with any of that with Bad Batch. Apparently, it just kicks off. They know what they're doing, which I'm very pleased with this, as I have watched many struggling Star Wars IPs
I
find
feel
their
like the
groove.
same people who really liked Clone Wars are the same people who really like the video game Civilization. Like, are
It's
you
such a
curious?
specific cross section.
Are you curious as how you can yield a crop of wood and trade it for a herd of lambs? Well, you might like season 4, episode 56 of Clone Wars, where Anakin and Ahsoka have to go to a farm on Tatooine.
Pretty
Like,
much. Honestly, pretty much. And like, I think the weird thing here is that even though it wasn't for me, it worked for an entire generation of kids.
oh,
It
for sure.
absolutely
For some people,
worked.
that was their entry point.
It absolutely
Yeah.
was. And I think one of the things that also that I have to remember as a Star Wars fan is like the way they portray Anakin and Padme is totally different than they do in the movies. And Padme in the show, I will say this for Clone Wars, even though the whole as an entirety it's not for me, the way they do Padme, they give her far more agency than the movies.
Oh,
They make her
good.
far more competent, and that you actually get to see her as a negotiator. All these things that they talk about in the movies, but you never see.
Oh, for sure.
And then Anakin, like you actually get develop, but that's a whole other rant. I did an
That-
Instagram live about that a few
That's
weeks
a
ago. You
whole that's a whole TikTok. So if you don't follow
oh my
Brian on
gosh,
TikTok, the
oh my
Bad
gosh.
Batch coming is going to give him some ammunition. So make sure you follow Brian Rogue Roush 115 on TikTok.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. Yeah, I promise I'm not like just looking at it. I'm like, oh, this is all content. It's all content. Yeah, I
No,
can just
of
chop
course
this
not.
up.
Why would anybody do that?
Honestly, there are some TikTokers out there. I applaud you all. You're live every night. I can't do that. That sounds exhausting.
I couldn't do it.
But shout out to you all. But that was the only other thing I want to say. Bad Batch is premiering. It's getting good reviews. And we'll probably talk about it more next week.
For sure, for sure. This is the part of the podcast where we have things to plug. Brian, anything you'd like to plug this week?
The only thing I have to plug is thelovenerds.com. Check them out for any recipe or crafting needs you may have.
Fantastic. Love me some lovenerds.com. The only thing that I have to plug for this is this podcast. Continue to watch and listen. We have some exciting things that are coming. We are getting into this Friday marks the start of summer blockbuster season, really. Is that first weekend in May is usually when movies start coming out more. And so there's going to be some strings there where every week we have a movie, just looking at releases and what we have to watch and so on. So stick with us just to break it all down. And if you like us, check out our Patreon page for some of those video feeds and some other things that we have in the works as well. But Brian, we have a 3-step process to success. And
we do.
I want you to kick us off with that first step, Brian.
So the first step, read a book. Just read something, read an article about something maybe you don't know about. And if nothing else has convinced you before, then you can be the person that says that fun fact at the next, interaction you have with someone like, oh, hey, did you know XYZ? Reading. It'll make you that person at the party.
Yeah, much more exciting to talk to at a social function, which are coming back. So be ready.
Yeah.
The next
even on Zoom calls,
Yeah. The next thing I have is it was 90 degrees in Vermilion on Saturday, and I did a lot of work outside. And had I not drank in some water, I would have had a real rough day. Would have had to sit down, and then the grass wouldn't have gotten mowed, and the weeds wouldn't have gotten pulled, and everything just would have gone south from there. Just make sure you drink some water. It's good for you. It's good for your bones. It's good for your body. It's just, you got to do it. Okay. Just start to finish. Just drink at least a glass, if not more, water a day. The last step process to success is, again, it was 90 degrees in Vermilion on Saturday, and I worked outside. And if I had intended on going to any social functions that day, people would have smelled me just in general. I would have had a shadow, and my shadow would have had a shadow. So you got to wash your ass. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. You don't need any extra equipment. Literally a washcloth, a soap, and your hand. That's it. That's all you need to do, and you need to get up in it so that way people don't smell you later. So just make sure you wash your ass. It's an important thing to do. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that has been our show. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Films in Black and White. We will be back next week. The trio will do this again next week, and we look forward to you then. In the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, and we will catch y'all next week.